We wanted to chat a little bit about Arizona and 2024, kind of set the table for you a little bit. What are some of the things we're going to see here? Obviously, we have a big Senate race coming up. Kyrsten Sinema's seat is up. And Kyrsten Sinema, she was a Democrat. She was elected as a Democrat and was a Democratic politician here in Arizona for a decade or more, served in the legislature, served in the House of Representatives, and then in the Senate. And then a year ago, 2 years ago, she changed to be an independent. And people, it still amazes me. I'm going to say this right now, and maybe hopefully the Democrats don't get too mad at me, but and I'll say this about everybody, but the Democrats are just, this is just stupid. I don't understand it. You had in Kyrsten Sinema, you had a Democrat who showed you how in Arizona to win a statewide election. Something that nobody had really done in quite some time. We hadn't had a Democratic governor in over 12 years. We hadn't had a Democratic senator in Arizona for 30 years until Sinema won. 30 years. The last one was Dennis DeConcini. So think about that for a second. So you had somebody in Kyrsten Sinema who found the path, and she said, here's how you do it. She showed you, is that you want to be a Democratic senator from Arizona, you have to kind of play to the middle a little bit. And I don't just mean play to it. She campaigned to the center. She said what she was going to do, that she was going to work across party lines. And she had done that as a congressperson. She was in Congress for several terms before that, and she had done that. She was from, and this to me, by the way, is the benefit of having districts that aren't so lopsided for one side or the other. She was in a district in Central Phoenix that was very mixed. It was Republicans and Democrats. It wasn't clear one way or the other. It was always a fight, and she won. And she realized, I think, that not only what might be best for the governing, but if she wanted to get reelected again, she can't be some super left-wing liberal and get reelected in that district. And so she governed. She tried to solve problems. She worked with Republicans and Democrats. She did that in the House. And then she got to the Senate, and she won that election against Martha McSally and everything that was happening there. 30 years of history not having a Democratic senator in Arizona. And she won, and then she did something outlandish. She actually got to Washington and did what she said she was going to do. She got to Washington and governed to the center. She's a Democrat, and she votes mostly with the Democrats. I think it was 80%. But on a lot of larger issues, she tried to find solutions. She worked with people on both sides of the aisle. She was the one Democrat that many Republicans in leadership would talk to, not because they wouldn't talk to others, but none of them showed interest in speaking with them. Can you imagine that? And Kyrsten Sinema did that. She governed. And I will tell you that I know what bothered a lot of Democrats about Sinema was she refused, along with Joe Manchin, she refused to get rid of the filibuster. She refused to get rid of in the Senate the thing that requires there be 60 votes in order to get many things passed. And I never understand Democrats who say we should get rid of the filibuster, because if you get rid of it now, you think the Democrats are going to be in charge and have the majority control of the Senate forever? They're not. So to get rid of the filibuster now and get some short-term gains that you think are so important, as soon as the Republicans are back in power, you've now handed them, they can do anything they want. Now that filibuster isn't there, they don't need 60 votes. The Republicans can now do anything they want. My goodness. So we can discuss whether that's appropriate or how that should be used, but to say that we should do that, Sinema fought against that and said, I'm not going to sign it, and as a result, the filibuster remains in place. And my guess is when the Republicans take over the Senate, which may happen at the end of this year, my guess is many will look back and say, thank goodness that Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin didn't give in to that mentality. But what happened is Sinema was looking at the polls, and she figured out that if she was going to run for a primary, if anybody was going to primary her in Arizona from the Democratic Party, she'd lose. She lost so much support from Democrats, and this is where I say it's just stupid. So you have someone who has shown you how to win a seat in Arizona as a Democrat and increase the Democrat. I mean, without that seat, the Democrats don't have the majority in the Senate, and they want to give it back. Mark Kelly came in and followed Kyrsten Sinema's playbook and won. Katie Hobbs did it. She showed Democrats how to do it, and what did she get in return? She got basically kicked out of the party. So in any case, you're going to have a big Senate race with Kyrsten Sinema, Carrie Lake most likely, and Ruben Gallego most likely. We'll see if Sinema even stays in the race. We'll see how that plays out. You're going to have some big congressional races this year, and then the other things you're going to have are some big ballot propositions in addition to legislative races. And one of the things we're going to be facing in our on the ballot this year is a constitutional amendment to legalize abortion, to protect the right for women to have an abortion in Arizona. And basically what the proposal is, what the budget proposition will be, is codifying, is turning into law what Roe v. Wade said. So you're going to be able to have, if this passes, you'd be able to have an abortion up to the viability of the fetus, which is basically 22 weeks. And then after that, you can still do it with exceptions for the life of the mother and without having criminal aspects for doctors who perform abortion. And there's things there. And it's actually just taking us back to where we were before Roe v. Wade was overturned. It takes us right back to where we were for decades. And the polling all shows that the vast majority of Arizonans agree with that, agree with a right to an abortion. You're going to hear from the folks who are anti-abortion. You're going to hear from them. You're already hearing from them. And they're going to tell you that this is making it legal to have an abortion up until the point of pregnancy or even after the pregnancy, after birth. And it's simply not true. It's just not. It's only to protect the life of the mother, which frankly is what the law is now. But in any case, I'm curious to see how this plays out. Republicans are starting to realize this abortion, this anti-abortion position that they've had for so long. It played well when Roe v. Wade was there to protect the right to an abortion. But now that that's gone, it's not playing well anymore. And they're losing. Republicans are losing in Ohio and Kansas. They're losing in very Republican states where the people have stood up and said, this isn't what we want. And you're starting to see politicians, Republican politicians like Kari Lake, they're starting to talk different about it, but haven't actually changed their position. Kari Lake, for example, is all for Arizona's pre-statehood law that bans all abortion. That's what she's for. How do I know that? That's what she says. that's Kari Lake's position on abortion. She wants it banned. It's an interesting position to have, but she's trying to soften it by talking different, but she doesn't change her position. That's what it is. And if you vote for Kari Lake and she makes it to the Senate, and there's going to be a Senate resolution, there's going to be a vote for a national ban on abortion, Kari Lake's going to vote for it. And that's it. So those are going to be big issues in 2024 in Arizona and around the country, but certainly in Arizona.
Thanks for watching The Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch the first season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.